The Sports Kings are Mean Gene,
Dustin Pfeiffer,
and Rudy Ray.
We have all the latest news and analysis on the NFL,
NBA, MLB, and more. The Sports Kings are on iHeartRadio every week.
You can also listen with Spotify,
TuneIn Radio,
iTunes,
Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Here are your hosts, Mean Gene, Dustin, and Rudy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Kings here on iHeartRadio. It's a Friday night, August 5th, 2022, getting you ready for the start of football and everything that's related NFL. And tonight I am joined, as always, by the other two Sports Kings from Southern California, Fresno, California, to be exact. You can hear them on the Rude Dog Show and Coachella Valley Sports, and I'm talking about the Rude Dog. What's up, Rudy?
What's going on? Hey, Gene, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to come on with you. And, you know, we look forward to all the great dynamics that the 2022 season will provide us. I mean, we have a plethora of games, including the debacle that was supposed to be some type of matchup last night as the Dallas Cowboys faced off against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Canton. And, of course, as you know, nobody wants to be in a puddle of water when there's lightning hanging around. So,
did you say Cowboys or you meant to say Raiders?
Oh, Raiders, Jaguars. Sorry, I thought I said Raiders. But, yeah, whenever there's a pool of water, lightning is not your friend.
No, definitely not. No, not at all. And also, folks joining us from Charlotte, Carolina, and it's very beneficial tonight for this guy, because I know he's been waiting on this show. We talking NFC South football tonight, and of course, you know who covers the NFC South. My co-host, he's been working with me for a very long time, covers the Carolina Panthers and the Charlotte Hornets. Please welcome the other Sports King, Dustin Pfeiffer. What's up, Dustin?
Hey, Gene, what's going on? Glad to be on, and yes, I'm ready to talk football. I'm ready to talk this NFC South that's right in my backyard, and you know I can talking about that game last night, like Rudy said, with the storms. You know, being down here in the South with the humidity and the summertime, we're used to those evening and afternoon storms, so I could definitely relate to them. But that just makes you know that football's here and that football weather's starting to change, and we're ready to go.
It is ready to go, and guys, you know, before we even jump into the NFC South, and there's a lot to cover with the four teams in the South and the changing of the demographics there with the teams and quarterbacks and everything. But how about some of the other breaking news out there, or breaking news for the week? Rudy brought one up, of course, with the Raiders and the Jaguars opening up preseason. No starters. We didn't expect to see any starters out there, but actually there was, Rudy. So I didn't think that Jacobs was going to be out there, and were you shocked at that at all?
No, not at all. When you look at what happened as he left it off last season, at not quite 1,000-yard season for him, which is kind of a low, because the year prior he racked up well over 1,000 yards. I think it was more about just getting used to the football, wanting to take some third-team reps, maybe some second-team reps, and really kind of get his bearing. And to be honest with you, Josh Jacobs looked absolutely fantastic last night. And I thought to myself, I wonder if this offensive line for the Raiders is going to protect Derek Carr in the regular season, because they looked a lot better. There were times where Jacksonville got in the backfield, but for the most part, the Raiders just scored it well and did what they wanted to do all night long last night. So I was kind of surprised, but I know Raider Nation's very happy to see Josh Jacobs out there. No Devontae Adams, no Derek Carr. And of course, they're going to see that till opening day, where everything gets rolling right around, my birthday. So this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the season in a big way.
Yeah, Dustin, what did you say? Were you shocked at anything out there?
That was actually my takeaway. I was actually very shocked to see Jacobs out there, because this is a game where you hardly play any starters. And again, there's a lot of things going around with Jacobs right now. They did not pick up his fifth-year option, so he's really in a contract year right now. But he's been a reliable back for them and has, like Rudy said, he's been over 1,000 yards, was close last year. And I really think he's a big part of that offense. So I was very surprised to see him out there, especially when you run him out there right after a storm came through with some wet field. So I was surprised to see him out there. But I'll tell you, one of the big takeaways I did have was another running back was Amir White. A mid-round pick from Georgia, and I'll tell you what, he's from right here in North Carolina, so I got to watch him play high school football, and he was one of the top recruits coming out of high school before he tore his ACL, and he went to Georgia. He had a combination running back with Cook that they had at Georgia, but I really think this kid, being a mid-round pick, can come in and make an impact, and maybe that's kind of what they're seeing in camp, that they kind of got a two-headed monster, so they wanted to see both of them out there, but I was surprised to see Jacobs out there, because you normally don't see that with a starting running back or a starter like that in a Hall of Fame game.
No, you don't. And Rudy, earlier, guys, I had, posted something on Twitter about just the feel. And I know it's the first preseason game of the year, and I don't think that we get so much excited about that as much as we do. Well, it's the Hall of Fame game, but the fact that we know the changes that have taken place with both teams, with Doug Peterson coming on and with Devontae Adams coming on and with Josh McDaniels coming on, that made it a little bit exciting, didn't it, Rudy?
I'll be honest with you. I was kind of excited to see Josh McDaniels even on the sideline. I mean, he used to ride by that stadium every single day heading to football practice. So he's very familiar with the area. I think it's just a matter of getting acclimated. His dad was there. His mom was there. I really just enjoyed besides the Lightning, obviously, everybody else was just, they're just having fun. It's really about getting your feet wet, if not figuratively, literally. And there was a lot of things that I wanted to take away from that game, but overall it was really about how dominant that Raiders front line was for about 80 to 90% of the snaps, where Jacksonville's not able to get in the backfield and a little dink and dunk, a little pass over, and they just made it work for them. I'd like to see how that works out during the regular season.
Yeah, and and just speaking of that storm, guys, just to get off topic for a little bit, that storm, I think they took the right precautions in not getting those guys out there because, we got word today that storm actually went farther east and got over into Washington, D.C. in a lightning bolt and unfortunately struck and killed 3 people. And so that was a serious storm.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think, people, fans, obviously you got to take precautions and you got to be safe for the fans and the players' sake. And obviously fans get riled up. They don't want to wait out these lightning delays because sometimes you don't even have rain. You just have lightning in the area. I experienced that going to an MLS soccer game here in Charlotte last week where the storms had stopped and it just kept lightning within a 10-mile radius. So they had to keep pushing the delay and the delay back. And the overall thing is, like you said, Gene, it's all about the safety of the fans and the stands and the safety of the players. And even though, the fans might get tired of waiting it out, in the end, you got to make that decision so something like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to those folks in D.C., just a couple of steps away from the White House. And I don't know if you guys saw that video, man, but that video of the lightning bolt was captured on one of the local TV stations. Oh my goodness, it was a jolt. But and just other news here before we get on to the NFC South football coverage tonight with the Sports Kings, Rudy Reyes and Dustin Pfeiffer. The passing of Vince Scully and now Dustin, this one hurts me because I am a major Dodger fan. I think you are too, Rudy, right?
There's a long story behind that, but I'll let you take that first.
Okay. No, guys. Hey, I mean, look, I love my Pittsburgh Steelers, but for some reason, oh my goodness, man, just the Dodgers, the Dodgers. Growing up in Arkansas, watching Dodgers with my dad and stuff. He was a Yankees fan, so we didn't get along in that house, right? And and knowing as a kid that I wanted to live in Los Angeles and eventually lived in Los Angeles and had the opportunity to meet Vin Scully. It was just unreal. A couple of people I've met in my lifetime that I won't forget. And Chick Hearn is one, Tommy Lasorda, and Vin Scully I met in the same day, which was, sometimes you forget you're part of the media, man. I was like, like a kid in a candy store. I walked by where Vin Scully broadcast, and he just happened to come out, and he's just standing right there, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyway, Vin Scully, the golden voice of the Dodgers organization, he broadcast for 67 years. Vin Scully passed away at the age of 94, and Rudy, man, this guy was a legend.
Not only was he a legend, but he really set the segue for what I wanted to do, because growing up, I listened to a transistor radio that my grandfather had in his garage, and it was so ominous to hear him. And whenever you hear him, there's only one phrase, back in the day when radio stations were kind of like a big deal with different DJs, things of that nature. There was always one phrase for him, and to me, it was a phrase that pays, and that was, "It's time for Dodgers baseball." And whenever I heard that, I said, "Wow!" I said, "That's amazing." And as I grew up, and of course, my house, for the most part, somewhat divided, because at the time, my dad was cutting Reggie Jackson's hair.
Oh, wow.
When he played for the LA Angels of Anaheim. Of course, they weren't known as the LA Angels of Anaheim; they were just the Anaheim Angels back then. And I had asked Reggie. Of course, I was only maybe 10 years old. And I asked Reggie. I said, "What do you think about Vin Scully?" He said, "Vin Scully is an absolute legend." That's all he said. And every time I go to my grandfather's house, I would want to listen to Dodger baseball just to listen to him.
Yeah.
And he's definitely missed. I didn't get a chance to meet him. Didn't get a chance to talk to him. But you mentioned Chick Hearn, because the Jello's always jiggling. When you lose voices like that, when you lose the icons, the ones who set the standard, it now becomes the standard. And those that are listening certainly should not forget that these guys were trendsetters, and to be respected through their tasks and their life and their legacy, and to help carry that on.
Yeah.
So I always miss Vin Scully, because nobody could ever do it like him.
Yeah, and I just have to pick up on that and say, I agree with everything that both of you said. What a legend, what a pioneer of broadcasting. I mean, everything that he's done. Everybody thinks about Dodgers baseball, obviously, but let's not forget, this guy called all sports. He called golf. He called the NFL. He did it all. Me as a Braves fan, I remember the call for Hank Aaron's 715th home run, which is one of his biggest calls. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he was able to do. And Gene, this. We talk about he did all sports, but especially with baseball, when you kind of have some lulls in the game, he just knew how to tell a story.
Oh,
and
my
really just
goodness.
take you, like you could be watching the game, and he could just take you on a journey somewhere else, and you still be watching the game, and he'll also have you somewhere else. And he just knew how to do that. He could be a one-man broadcast as he was before. I mean, he just knew how to paint a picture for you. Like Rudy said, you didn't have to be watching the game; he could paint the picture for you just listening to his words. And again, he's a pioneer of broadcasting. He's one of the best to ever do it. And obviously, anytime we go on air, we will try to instill stuff like Vin Scully did, because that's just how great he was. And obviously, we have heroes and stuff that made us want to do what we do and inspire us. And he's definitely one of those guys that inspire you to do the best you can in this broadcasting business. And it's just an honor to be able to talk about him on the air. And prayers and thoughts to his family, because we did lose a legend.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Vin Scully, and then and I know we're going to get on to the NFC South, and but then we lost Bill Russell. It's just been a rough week, actually, in the world of sports, and Bill Russell passed away at the age of 88, and now I actually did a show. You guys can check that out on the Mean Gene Show. I jumped on, I think maybe the day, a couple hours after or the day after. I had to think about it a little bit, but I just, and that I just, you act out of emotion, man. I just couldn't sit around and watch, this was a guy I did not meet, but man, just a legend, a GOAT. And I know people make the comparisons to Jordan, to Kobe, to LeBron, but man, Rudy, what Bill Russell did for the game of basketball, you just can't compare him to nobody.
No, he is incomparable to anyone. You have the conversations about Jordan, Kobe, as you stated, and more importantly, Bill Russell was such a fantastic humanitarian. He reminds me of Roberto Clemente and what he meant for the Cuban people, what he meant for the Pirates organization, and his wife, I'm sure, was very enamored by his efforts. Of course, losing his life, trying to help people less fortunate than him. Bill Russell always giving away words of wisdom, always being a humanitarian, always just being very humble. And you would see him at games, and he would sit there with this, glazed look on his face because he's either in disgust or he's watching the game as it's played today. And to go back to Kobe Bryant for a minute, sports stopped the day Kobe Bryant passed away. And I was at work. I was working at iHeart at the time. And when I heard of Bill Russell, I almost fell out of my chair. I could not believe that Bill Russell, the most winningest NBA champion to ever touch the hardwood, has passed on. And I was so touched by the outpouring of love from all over the NBA community and all the great things people had to say about him. Same thing for Vin Scully. The same thing was said for Kobe Bryant. And, there's so much to miss from Bill Russell. He can never be replaced on this planet or the next. So my condolences go to his family, obviously, as well as the people's lives that he touched along the way.
Yeah, I agree. Again, everything you both are saying it perfectly. Another legend lost. And Gina, everybody talks about his winning on the court. He's obviously going to go down as the greatest winner of all time when it comes to basketball and even sports almost. And, but then you got to think about the other side of it when it's the stuff he did off the basketball court was even bigger. I mean, it's just amazing when you have a person like that whose accomplishments on and off the court are just unmatched. Like you said, you can't compare him. And again, you could tell that he always had, even when he was getting older, attending the All-Star games and all these events, how much love the younger players had for him, just talking to him, picking his brain about stuff. And again, like you said, it's been a rough week to lose two legends like that. But man, it is an honor to be able to honor them and their legacy and what all they were able to do for the world of sports and for the world in general.
Absolutely. So, man, just, had to certainly get talk about that, guys, because there's no way we could, just not acknowledge that two incredible legends that we lose. Okay, well, it's the NFC South here. Things are going to be interesting in this division. We got New Orleans, we got Tampa Bay, we got Carolina, and we got am I missing somebody? New Orleans?
Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons. Okay. Yeah. See, that's why there has to be three of us because we all have to pick each other up here. So, but no, an interesting division. What makes this division interesting is that all four teams in that division have been to a Super Bowl, and not a lot of divisions can say that. The Saints, Carolina, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay, all of them have been there. But, man, just of late, things have changed. I don't know. There's a few other divisions in the NFL that has changed the landscape. But, man, this one, Matty Ice, no longer in Atlanta. He led that team to a Super Bowl. You got the Carolina Panthers. They're going to have a different captain at the helm there. And then Tampa Bay, things kind of stay the same in Tampa for a little bit with TB12. But then you got the Saints who, Drew Brees retires and Jameis Winston goes down and, man, all hell break loose. Sean Payton disappears and now Jameis Winston is back. And Rudy, let's start with these New Orleans Saints who last year, they finished 9-8. Which was second best in that division, but what's going to happen with the New Orleans Saints this year in 2022?
Well, I mean, you look at Jameis Winston going down in an very untimely, unfortunate injury that's seen almost a quarterback by committee between Ian Book and Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill just muscled his way through so many games. Such a physical guy, big, huge quarterback slash fullback slash tight end. I mean, the guy did so much for Drew Brees when he was the guy under center. But you have to work with what you have, and because of the quarterback by committee, there's so many things that Atlanta needed to get back to. They needed to get back to the running game. They hadn't had a great running back situation as it was, as you had mentioned, Gene, and when they had lost to the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, it doesn't get easy for them at all. When you look what they have to do, I mean, you have the final 4 games of weeks 10 through 13, which are an absolute stellar, amount of talent that they're going to face off between Steelers, Rams, 49ers, and Buccaneers, a team within their own division that they must win. And when you're at home, this is not an easy thing to do. And trying to recover and looking where Jameis Winston is right now, no longer eating W's, he's actually winning games. He was doing that last year, and he looked relatively decent prior to his injury. So it just kind of makes you wonder, does he pick up from where he left off? He does have some more weapons in Jarvis Landry. He certainly is willing to kind of find his way around this team again. And I think with Michael Thomas coming back, you have more of a throw first mentality that most teams have in the NFL. I just want to see Jameis Winston pick up where he left off in 2021 and make a solid effort in 2022. Obviously, always difficult to try to beat your nemesis, and I'm referring to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have won this division multiple times within the last 4 years. So, again, one of those things that they're going to have to do. It's a daunting task. It's certainly possible. It's feasible, and it's realistic to suggest that at the end of the day, the Saints could find their way into being in that number 2 spot in the NFC South again. But again, it's all about quarterback play and solid quarterback play, along with just setting Jameis Winston up for wins, winning at the line, winning on third down, and the offensive line doing their job just as we've seen them do for anybody under center, including Taysom Hill, who they really, truly rallied around last year due to the quarterback by committee. So I think the Saints have their work cut out for them. There are quite a few losses within this year, but I think overall, when you look at the New Orleans Saints, it just makes you wonder, can they get back to that number 2 spot and maybe take these guys over? I mean, they have Chris Olave in addition to that core. So in all fairness, I think the Saints will do a lot better. I just don't know how much better. They could win 8 games. They could win more. I think, again, it's all dependent on if they set Jameis Winston up for success rather than in defeat, especially in short yardage situations.
Yeah, and I'll pick up with everything you said there, Rudy. I mean, the Saints are a team where really it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because they could either take a step forward or they could take a step back. It's really, up in the air. They've got a lot of good things going for them, but then they still have some question marks. And you mentioned it right there off the bat. Obviously, the biggest thing, Jameis getting back and being healthy. But the other thing is, what are we going to see from Michael Thomas? The guy hasn't played a snap since 2020. So, they're expecting to finally have him back fully healthy. So obviously that's a big weapon. If he was on the field, he was one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. And then you add a guy like Olave and you add Jarvis Landry. So you definitely added weapons. And if those guys are healthy, that's going to be about the best receiving core the Saints have had in a few years. Obviously, Drew Brees always made them look better, but they really only had Michael Thomas, and that was about it. So you really had some weapons there. They bring back Mark Ingram. You just talked about the short yardage. He can get there with Kamara. But, again, all that good stuff, but there's a lot of question marks. It's first of all, Kamara is dealing with a lot of legal issues. It seems like whenever that does take, pan out, there is going to be a suspension in the NFL for a battery arrest in Las Vegas. So we have that out there. And unless, all the receivers we can talk about, Kamara is their best offensive weapon. So if they happen to lose him, that's going to be a problem. They lost their starting all-pro left tackle to the Dolphins. Now, I know they drafted one and they're trying to replace it, and they got some decent pieces on the line. But when you lose your all-pro left tackle, there's going to be an adjustment. So we're going to have to see how that works out. And then the biggest thing to me, Gene, here is Sean Payton. Everybody talks about how Sean Payton is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So you can't sit here and tell me, especially being an offensive genius. So you can't sit here and tell me that they're just going to go from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen, who I know Dennis Allen has been there under Sean Payton and knows how that stuff runs. But I just don't think you're going to go from what people consider a top 5 coach in the league to losing him and just things are going to go smooth sailing. So again, they've got a lot of things going for them. If Jameis can stay healthy, they got some offensive weapons. They got a good defense. And one thing you were talking about with their rival, Rudy, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, let's not forget, they have owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the past couple of years. So that is a good. I don't know what happens, but they have got a game plan for them. So that's in their favor too. But I just really am concerned about losing a head coach like Sean Payton and just expecting the organization just to pick up right where he left off. So we'll have to see what happens there. What do you think, Gene?
Yeah, that's a big one. That is a big one, and I know he's been in the organization talking about Dennis Allen, so it makes it somewhat better. He's been a defensive guy, and he's had a lot to do with those dominant wins over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because it's been defense oriented that made that happen. That defense is still good, and according to Sharp Football Analysis, their strength of schedule overall there is number 9. Believe it or not. The Buccaneers once again has one of the easiest schedules. They have the 7th best easiest schedule of all 32 teams. So that's somewhat promising for the New Orleans Saints. But I think you're right. It's going to matter, how Allen takes over. I like that he's in house, so you don't have someone coming in with a whole different scheme, so to speak. But Jameis Winston is probably going to have he's the big if. He is the one. And Kamara, and getting Thomas back is going to help. And Kamara, whatever suspension he gets. And you brought that up, and it happened in Las Vegas. It happened the weekend of the Pro Bowl, and I was actually out there. And I don't know what it is about Las Vegas. Something always goes down when I'm there for a weekend. And now you guys are going to be there, so who knows what's going to happen in Vegas. But the one weekend, Rudy, I was out there, John Gruden gets fired. And then I'm like, Lord, what is going on here? I can't even go to an event in Vegas without something happening. So hopefully nothing happens where we out there.
So what Gene's saying is, Rudy, when we get out there, we might need to keep a couple of feet distance in between me and him because we don't know what he's
I don't think it's me
as far as the Juden goes.
I hope it's not me. But anyway.
Hey, one thing, real quick, Gene, I want to move on to a different team, but the one name we didn't mention was they did add the Honey Badger. And when you talk about a leader on defense, that's a big piece. So that's another big piece they did bring in. Yeah,
and Rudy, hey, the Saints are the Saints. They might surprise us. But let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons and the fact that, man, Can any of you, and especially you, Rudy, can we imagine the Falcons starting a season without Matt Ryan?
Can you name me 10 players that play for the Falcons right now?
I can tell you this: they were up 20-3. That's all I know. You're up 20-3.
Oh, you're going way back.
I just thought a few years ago, it's not as if Atlanta has, been
2016
has not been in the conversation, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
It's not impossible to suggest that the Falcons are retooling or rebuilding, or maybe they're trying to recreate Rome, or whatever the case might be. The Atlanta Falcons look a lot different this year than I think probably within the last 5 to 7 years, all due to losing their running back in Mostert, goes over to San Francisco. You get free agency that seems to decimate a lot of different teams. Atlanta was no exception to that rule. But even though they lost a guy like Matt Ryan, and I give Matt Ryan all the credit in the world for putting up with absolutely everything he needed to in order to help create a winning mentality, along with other players for a franchise that's always fallen flat on their face when they don't need to. And that, again, is the Atlanta Falcons for you. The Falcons Falcon, the Browns Brown, and the list goes on and on. But when we look at the quarterback position, you think to yourself, well, we need someone to start. Well, who could be the heir apparent starter? Well, we look at all these different quarterbacks, and the one that comes to mind that they ended up acquiring was Marcus Mariota, which is kind of interesting because when you look at Marcus Mariota, I thought to myself, Marcus Mariota is another, poor man's quarterback, another Mason Rudolph, or a guy where you already know what you're going to get from him. He's proved me wrong. He played with the Raiders last year. He looked really good under center, trying to make something out of nothing. But this is going to be an uphill battle for this Falcons team, trying to create an identity within the NFC South. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sold on the Falcons quite yet. I'm more concerned about quarterback play. I know it boils down to quarterback play all the time, right? Because they're the most expensive guys on the field, the ones who command respect, who command the ability to be that heir apparent. I just don't know if you're going to see a ton of Mariota. Maybe he's ready from a health standpoint. Maybe he's not. But I'll tell you what, Desmond Ridder looks solid. From all the reports that I've heard, from scouting reports, from his time in college, he looks really, really good. And it's not as if he was a high draft pick, because we know he wasn't, but and the quarterback class in 2022 wasn't exactly ideal anyway, let's be honest. However, I think that when you look at the Falcons overall, rebuilding is going to take a couple of years, maybe 3 years. It depends on what they're able to do in 2022 to determine what the 23 draft, 24 draft, the 25 draft is going to look like for them. I think they're going to end up in the middle of the pack, but at the end of the day, I project them as maybe falling to the very bottom of this division, only because they are rebuilding and there are other teams that have gotten legitimate jump starts over the Falcons in various high impact positions. So Carolina is one of them. Obviously, you look at Tom Brady, that is another it's moving water, right? When you're talking about fluid water, you talk about water, it's always moving. Stale water brings creatures and termites and mosquitoes and larvae and everything else. The fluid water is, and I'm going to give this over to Dustin, because he knows this a little bit more than I do in regards to the quarterback play for the Carolina Panthers and where they're at right now. And we've spoken about this at length, Dustin, when we talk about who Matt Rule is, what does he mean to this franchise, and is he the dead man walking?
Yeah, and first I'll start with the Falcons. I agree a lot with what you said. I have them finishing last in this division this year. And again, it's because they're rebuilding. And I'll actually give them a little credit, because if you look at the past 2 years, yes, they've had Matt Ryan, and not last year they didn't have Julio, but the year before they had Julio, they had Ridley. So they still were trying to be a team that was competing, but it just wasn't happening. They still were just a middle of the pack team, maybe trying to finish around 500, but still missing the playoffs. Last year they had Matt Ryan, they go 7-10 and miss the playoffs. And at some point, as much as you want to hang on to those big names like a Matt Ryan, like a Julio Jones, because they've been your cornerstones of the franchise, when it starts going downhill and it's not working, it's time to cut bait with that big money and move on. So is it weird not seeing Matt Ryan in Atlanta? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But when he's making that much money as your quarterback and you're not making the playoffs, it's not his fault. They just have an incomplete roster. And now they're without Calvin Ridley for a year, and that's another topic for another day, because he should not have been suspended for an entire season. Especially with what you see what's going on with some other suspensions for worse stuff. So, but they missed him. So really, they lose Russell Gage to the Buccaneers. So now you're really relying on Kyle Pitts even more, who was an amazing tight end. You're relying on the rookie receiver that you drafted in Drake London. You traded for Brian Edwards. So to me, Mariota, I think, is a good bridge fit for them because he has played with Arthur Smith before, and they've had a good combination there. So I really like what they're doing. I like them having him just as a veteran. But again, the overall thing about it, Gene, is it's just an incomplete roster. And mainly what's really cost them the past couple of years and still has not gotten better one bit is just that they have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Yeah. And so even when Matt Ryan was scoring all those points, they couldn't keep up. So, again, it's a rebuild. Like Rudy said, it's going to take a couple of years. But at least they're trying to build it from the ground up now, and really trying to build it young. Deion Jones is one of their best defensive players, and they're already talking about him being a cap casualty. So it really looks like they're tearing this thing down and building up from the start. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I've got them being the last team in this division.
Okay, and I'm looking at this schedule, and they have this one tough 4-game stretch between week 2 and week 5, which that doesn't seem that tough when you look at it. They're at the Rams. Okay, it could be a loss. At Seattle, I don't know. They could beat Seattle. Then home against the Browns and at Buccaneers, which I think they can go, 2-2 during that stretch. So, but nevertheless, I still think, you got to play Bucs twice. You got to, play Falcons twice, and then you got the Saints. You got the Panthers. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough. I kind of got them finishing last place in that division. And I tell you what now. Okay, so we got 2 left here in this division. Which way you guys want to go? Do we save Dustin? You want to save the Panthers for last?
Yeah, let's save it for last, and I'll let you both fire away at me what I've heard at training camp.
Okay. So. Well, all right. On the Mean Gene show the other day, I had Sony Thompson, no relation to Mean Gene Thompson. Okay, Sony lives in Tampa. She's our boxing expert actually, but she dibbles and dabbles in football. And I'm like, okay, well, Sony, why are you down there? How about we send you over to Buccaneers training camp, which she's going to be there tomorrow. She was there last week. Had interviews with Todd Bowles and Mike Evans. So we got these Buccaneers, guys, team that was, so close to beating the Rams, the team that eventually won the Super Bowl. But, man, that comeback in that game, the playoffs, was remarkable. 27-30. Even though Brady looked so bad, Rudy, it looked like he was going to retire then. I saw gray hairs, and I saw blood coming out of his mouth or nose. And here we go. He did retire, but he comes back. And Bruce Arians somehow, and we'll probably talk about this one of these days on another show. Somehow Brady retires, comes back, Arians out, Todd Bowles is the coach, and now they get Julio Jones. No Gronk yet, even though I think Gronk might just pop up right before week 1. But what are your thoughts on those Buccaneers, Rudy?
The Buccaneers, it's kind of interesting because you see, a couple of key pieces coming back. Mike Evans had some type of injury. I'm not explicitly sure what that was, but he remains questionable for tomorrow for practice. And then you see Chris Godwin, who now is making a very, very solid return. The timing couldn't be any better, right? Because he can receive balls in the backfield. Very dangerous, athletic guy. Who's a super speedy guy on the inside and can read the blocks up front in advance. His O-line is just that good, even though they did lose their center maybe indefinitely for the season. So certainly a lot of changes on that offensive line. But one thing staying true is that the GOAT has returned, and that football that guy was trying to sell for $500,000 was deflated down next to nothing. It begs a question. Is Tom Brady, did he call it too soon? Is he going to be the unretired GOAT? And he went ahead and did just that. And interestingly enough, when you think about Tom Brady, there are 2 things that come to mind. Both have to do with games. And I don't mean the kind you walk through. And it'll always be known to me as a guy who has and we'll say this for another time or another show, but he has cheating down to a science. I mean, it's a pure, unadulterated, and I guess I can give him props for that. I don't know quite yet how that works out, but when you look at week 1 through 4, they're in Dallas playing against the Cowboys. Never tough against them, despite the losses on the defensive line and in the secondary. They're playing in New Orleans, which is always a difficult place to play at Mercedes-Benz. And then they're on the road against the Packers. The Packers, two-time defending NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers, who's certainly trying to pick apart that secondary. They ended up getting rid of Pierre Desir in the secondary from Tampa Bay in the offseason for whatever reason. They found a better option, I guess. I'm not sure who a better option is for a guy who has intercepted a lot of different quarterbacks during his tenure. And then they traveled to Kansas City, one of the loudest places to play, and almost a repeat of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
When it's the AFC Championship game. So one of those things where you look at Tom Brady, you think to yourself, man, can he really get it done? This is a daunting task because they're back-to-back away games for Cowboys and Saints, and it's never easy. We've seen Tom Brady struggle. We've seen him throw interceptions, looked more human in the last couple of years without Bill Belichick making those halftime game adjustments, right? And being able to kind of be the smart guy in the room, or outsmarting everybody inside of the room. So one of those things that you look at, you think to yourself, man, can that even be possible? Can they defeat the Packers on the road? I say no. Can they play and beat the Chiefs on the road? I'm going to say no, despite the loss of Tyreek Hill headed over to Miami in the offseason. I just think that you're going to have a knockdown, drag-out fight when you're traveling to the Big Easy, which is not going to be easy for Tom Brady, because the New Orleans Saints is looking at upending them, because, again, Tampa Bay's, back-to-back NFC South champs. We're going to see what happens. I think it's a wild offseason, but when you mentioned Rob Gronkowski, I don't think Rob's coming back under any circumstances whatsoever. All the news, all the reports, everything that I've heard indicates that Rob Gronkowski is not going to come back even before week 1. And Dusty, you mentioned Sean Payton, who is the orchestrator behind that Saints offensive line with Drew Brees, just an absolute master when it comes to game adjustments, in-game adjustments, halftime adjustments. And this is just going to be very different in 2022. But overall, I think that's going to be an L for Tom Brady and company. So back-to-back L's to start off the season between the Packers and Chiefs. I think they win it against the Saints, and then maybe squeak one out against the Cowboys. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you kind of put your thoughts right kind of where I'm thinking about the Buccaneers. Really, like, I'm going to go ahead and preface it by saying I think the Buccaneers are going to win the division. It's the division. Like I said, the Saints may have a chance. We'll have to see what happens with the Panthers and their quarterback play. We're going to talk about that. But I still think the Bucs are the best team in that division, and I think they will win the division. But with that being said, that we obviously know that's not the Buccaneers or Tom Brady's goal is just to win the division. It's to go in there and win the Super Bowl every single year. And I just got to be honest, there is a lot of question marks, with Tom coming back. This team has changed a lot. I mean, like you said it, Mike Evans has got to get all the way healthy. Chris Godwin is coming off an ACL. We don't know how close to 100% he's going to be at the start of the season. They lose guys like Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh. They lose Gronk. They lost Ronald Jones, who was another one of their running backs. And then they lost 2 of their offensive guards. One retired and one signed with the Bengals. So that's a lot of changes in the offseason for a team that's trying to get as much back and go for another run for the Super Bowl. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And to me, with Gronk, I'm kind of with Gene on this. Like, he can say it all he wants, but if he just doesn't want to go to training camp. So if they give him a call around, it may not even, you're right, Rudy, it may not be week 1. It might be 2, 3, or 4. But I think, they're going to pick up the phone, or Tom's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, look, buddy, I need you. And I think he's going to end up coming back. He just doesn't want to go through all that stuff to start the season. So, because, think about it. with Godwin coming back being a question mark, and Evans not staying healthy, they need that guy to open up the middle of the field, and Tom knows he needs Gronk. But my biggest concern with this team, Gene, is obviously Brady's the GOAT and he's going to do what he does. But any time that he's had issues, the biggest thing that has made him have issues is pressure up the middle, not on the outside, right up the middle with guys like Aaron Donald and different people like that. If they can push it up the middle, they can make it uncomfortable for Tom Brady. And when you lose two offensive guards who were on your Super Bowl team and you lose them, one to retire, one to the Bengals, and now, like Rudy said, your center, Ryan Jensen, looks like he could be out a long time make some of those signals with you. That's three offensive guards or a center that you're losing. And that's a big question mark on this offensive line. They obviously traded for Shaq Mason from the Patriots, so he'll help. But, man, Brady, he again, at some point, we already know he's kind of a statue, so you got to protect him. And if they're getting that pressure up the middle, that's going to be a problem. And that's why I say I see them winning the division. But when it comes to teams like the Rams, or maybe even the Packers, or then you flip it to the AFC with the Chiefs and the Bills, I just don't think they're on that level yet. So will they get in the playoffs? Absolutely. It's Tom Brady. It's the GOAT. But I just don't know if I see them being able to make a deep run for Tom to try to get to another Super Bowl.
And if that's the case, it's going to be because, well, number one, he just turned 45. The guy's 5 years away from being 50 years old. And you guys know how quick 5 years can go by. But you both made a good point, Rudy, in those first four games, and even looking at a stretch of what looks like to be an easy stretch. These defenses that Tom Brady is going to face, that's going to be the telltale for me. Cowboys defense, that Cowboys defense is still good, and that Saints defense, who knows Brady well, and Packers have a good defense. Chiefs defense has gotten even better. But that 4-game stretch that I was referring to, Falcons, Steelers, Panthers, and Ravens, week 5 through 8, those should be winnable games, but at the same time, defenses from the Steelers and Ravens, who both teams are known for their defenses. So Brady could have a tough year. That offensive line is going to be tested this year, and they know that center Ryan Jensen is out, and they know how important that position is to Tom Brady and that Buccaneers team. So I agree, guys. They're gonna, hey. And I tell people all the time, man, on paper it all looks good until you get out there. Hey, Mike Tyson said it best. Every boxer has a plan until he get punched in the mouth, right?
That's right.
So,
or get your ear bit off, one of the other.
Yeah, one of the two. So that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now last but not least, of course, we had to save the Panthers for last year, and man, I'd just like to go back and just look at some of the golden days of the Panthers, Dustin. I hate to do this to you, but 2013, 2014, 2015, it was all Panthers, and including that crazy one year with a 7-8-1 record. When they went in and they won the wild card, but still, hey, they won. Only the Panthers could put that off. And then I know, Rudy, we did a show in Las Vegas at the Silverton Hotel there. And that was the year that the Panthers were actually in the Super Bowl. And, man, 15-1 year. I got a chance to go to the New Orleans Saints. I caught that one. I saw one Panthers game that year, and that was when they played Drew Brees and the Saints, and I went into that Panthers locker room, and man, I just never seen a team that looked so freaking focused. And then we did the show in Vegas, of course, and we made our predictions. It was a crazy Super Bowl, of course, having to go up against Peyton Manning and the Broncos, but it really looked like the Panthers was gonna win that. But things have changed though, and
you're hurting me, Gene.
Look, I have to give.
I'm sitting here right now on my sports room. I'm looking at a picture of Cam Newton from when he scored a touchdown against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving in that 2015 year when they went 15-1.
Oh yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at a Super Bowl picture of when they went to that. It was Super Bowl 50. So Your team, 15-1, Super Bowl 50. One of the biggest Super Bowls there is. Your team's 15-1. Your quarterback's the league MVP. And Gene, I was on that show with you, and there was no way I thought they were going to lose that Super Bowl. And you talked about Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning barely even did anything in that game. It was all Von Miller and all that Broncos defense, and that is a game. Falcons fans talk about 28-3 with them. That 15-1 season will haunt me for a long, long time, because you know that, Gene and Rudy, you don't get maybe one chance to have a team like that where you go 15-1 in the NFL and you don't complete the job. So thanks for bringing that up, Gene.
Well,
I'm
just trying to recap for our listeners, because just like we did with the other teams, Dustin. So Rudy, and just the Panthers. The Panthers have the respect of the league, obviously. Remember they got into the playoffs deep, NFC Championship game in their first year existence. Now, how many teams have ever done that? Am I right, Dustin?
Yeah, they were in. It was the second year.
The second year.
The NFC Championship against the Green Bay Packers with Dom Capers and Gary Collins.
So they came in with respect, and that Panthers team still has respect. But Rudy, we've talked about the Buccaneers, we talked about the Falcons and the Saints, and knowing that Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold is up there with Christian McCaffrey, and what's your outlook there for the Carolina Panthers?
Well, I can tell you this much: if Matt Rule does not lead this team into some type of playoff contention, he's as good as gone. There's no question about it. He's had more than enough time to get this team right. And find out who the captain under center actually is. And we're not talking about who the ultimate starter is going to be, because the jury's still out on it. And, of course, unless Sam Darnold decides to see some ghosts, he's playing pretty well, considered, at least from my understanding. And I've met Sam Darnold a few times. One thing I know about Sam Darnold is that he always plays to win. But when you misread defenses, when you start seeing things that aren't there, the game's moving too fast for you, you don't have a chance. You just don't have a chance. And I recognize that when you look at Baker Mayfield on the other side, of course, these guys, as it's being pictured, that these guys are like the best of friends, the bosom buddies, the Balkies, it's just there's something to be said for competitive natures that both of these guys currently have. Baker Mayfield did it in Oklahoma. He did it and led the Browns to their first playoff game in probably since before I was even born, and I'm pretty old. So there's just a lot of things to like about what both of these guys bring to the center position. The problem that I have is that with Matt Rule getting fired, if this team decides to not to get into positive territory but find themselves bowing out and tanking, he's going to be the first guy gone, and it could happen as early as midseason. That's just my guesstimate. However, when you look at what Carolina did in 2021, they won their first 3 games. But before that, they lost everything. They lost it all. And when you look to yourself, what was the catalyst to these guys losing? What was the deciding factor as to, who lost? Did they lose at the line? Did they lose in a battle for coverage? Did, the quarterback make the wrong decision? It was a quarterback by committee. You don't bring Cam Newton back. He's done. So that was, I don't know. I think that that was a serious errand on the part of ownership. But when I look at where the Cleveland Browns are not having a quarterback, I think that Carolina has a chance to beat Cleveland. And of course, with that new NFL PA going against the NFL in their appeal, to not only overturn the 6-game suspension, the potential 12-game suspension, and leave it at 6 is a whole nother ballgame, which could ultimately leave Deshaun Watson on the outside looking in. However, that win streak could really play out when they face off against New York in week 2, which looks relatively winnable considering the quarterback they have under center, Danny Dimes, sure it turns into more like Danny Pennies when he's not reading wide receivers, defenses. His defense has given up way too many points, especially in the secondary. But then you get to the Saints, you get to the Cardinals. It gets incrementally harder when you face off against the 49ers and then the defending, Super Bowl champion, LA Rams, and the Buccaneers. It's a brutal schedule, probably one of the toughest that you're going to find in a week 1 through week 5. And unfortunately for Carolina, I don't see them going anywhere but maybe a 2-5. Maybe a 3-5 start. I don't know. Maybe squeak in a San Francisco win, but I doubt it. But one thing I really like about Carolina, and hopefully he stays healthy, is C-Mac, Christian McCaffrey. We've seen him go down in the last couple of years with knee injuries, leg injuries. The guy just cannot stay healthy. I don't know if that's too much to put on him, if that's more to put on the offensive line and their lackluster, gap opening at the line of scrimmage, and then Christian McCaffrey to slice through for, massive, gains and maybe first downs, touchdowns, especially in the red zone. I just don't know that the Panthers will get to anywhere but 500 this season. But they still piggyback, which is a definite upswing from where they were last year, when the Carolina, I think, takes the 3rd position within the NFC South and jumps over Atlanta by a pretty decent margin at 500.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, you talked about last year. They started off 3-0. They lost 12 of their last 14 games. That's pretty hard to do in the NFL. It just went all downhill. Christian McCaffrey was hurt. They, like you said, they played quarterback carousel. They played Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, P.J. Walker. I mean, they went up and down the board trying to find a quarterback that could just fill in, and it just wasn't working. So you're right. Big year for Matt Rule. He obviously knows if he doesn't make a step up. I'm not necessarily saying they have to make the playoffs, but what Rudy said is right. They have to at least be going in those last couple weeks of the season. They have to be in contention and at least try to get a spot and show improvement. And honestly, you talked about 500, Rudy. If they can get to 8-9 or 9-8, that's a big improvement from 5 wins. And that is also, honestly, the NFC is going to be so jumbled, and they added that extra wild card spot that if you get to 9-8 or 8-9, you might have a chance to get in. So I think that's the kind of jump they're looking for. They obviously know they have a tough schedule. They're in a tough division. Obviously, they got to get off to another hot start. You mentioned it, Cleveland without Deshaun Watson, most likely. The Giants, the Saints at home. They need to take advantage of that hot start and win some games again. And listen, I've been following camp closely, and they're doing it exactly how they said they're going to do it. They're splitting the reps each day. One day Sam Darnold is going with the 1s, and then Baker's going with the 2s, and then the next day they're flipping it around where Baker's with the 1s and Darnold's with the 2s. And everything that, from my following it, from following closely in interviews and everything that I've heard from my sources and everything like that, yes, Darnold, like you said, Rudy, has looked decent in training camp. But, let's be clear, that's still without, guys breathing down your necks and different things like that. They both have looked good, but everything that I've heard is that you can see a pretty clear difference that this is Baker's job. I mean, the way he commands a huddle, the way he has zip on his throws, it sounds like he's ripping the ball more as far as deep shots go. He said Robbie Anderson a couple times. So to me, it really seems like Baker's pulling away, and I really hope soon that they, instead of letting this play out for a long period of time, that they really go ahead and make this decision. They may wait a preseason game or two, but I just don't want to keep mixing up reps with 1 and 2s. Like, if Baker's going to be the starter, he needs to have the reps with the 1s so he can continue building relationships with those guys. So I think Baker's going to win that job pretty easily. I think he'll be the starter. Obviously, what you said, Rudy, is paramount. Christian McCaffrey has to stay healthy. He is the go point of this offense, catching and running, and he needs to stay healthy. And yes, a lot of that has been the offensive line, but a lot of that has just been, I think he's almost, and this may sound crazy, Gene and Rudy, but I think he's almost in too good a shape. You know how sometimes your body's so chiseled and so perfect, it's easier to pull those muscles because it's just so, it's so refined. And so he said he's taking care of his body a different way this year. So let's hope that he's able to be more durable. I like what they've done. I think they've completely revamped the offensive line which has been the problem for like 5 years now. But you draft a left tackle in Icky, who honestly is not even getting first-team reps right now. Brady Christensen, who was a rookie last year, is getting those first-team reps. So they've got a lot of depth on the offensive line now. They added a center from the Ravens in Bozeman. They added a starting guard from the Rams in Austin Corbett. So they completely remade that line where I think it's going to be one of the strengths of that team. And then let's not forget, Gene, last year, people don't realize this because of how bad their record was, but the Panthers had the second-best defense in the NFL. They have built that up from the draft with Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin and those guys. And then they drafted J.C. Horn, who they lost last year, and he's back healthy. And the cornerback group with J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, C.J. Henderson, who they traded for last year with a top 10 pick with the Jags, and they say he is locking people down in camp. So that's 3 corners right there where they've got a really good group. So I like what they've done this offseason. I think they finally got it going in the right direction. That the atmosphere down there is a lot more loose. It seems like Mantle is more relaxed. I told you he added 2 head coaches to his staff, and McAdoo and Steve Wilkes. I think that has helped him with his staff. And I think the players realize that this is different from other years. Is it a guaranteed playoff team? No, but I think this team realizes that they have the pieces to win some football games. So I'm expecting them to make a jump this year. What kind of jump it'll be, we'll have to see because, like you said, that schedule is brutal. But I like what I see from the Carolina Panthers so far in training camp.
Hey, good stuff. I mean, and hey, maybe the Panthers surprised us like they did last year. Got off to that 3-0 start because of that defense you just mentioned, Dustin, and then Rudy. You're right that the schedule is brutal. I mean, it gets tough to begin. Out the box there. Especially weeks 4 through 7 with Cardinals, and Niners, Rams, and Buccaneers. But then, it gets easy in the end. It's a 17-game season. Anything can happen. And just like we said, guys, on paper, it can look tough. It can look easy. But, man, once you get out there and those injuries, happen and things just happen, you just never know what could happen. But one thing I want to say is that what should make things easy for Mayfield. And I love the quarterback competition, by the way. I just think, hey, both of these guys have something to prove. And that's a good thing if you're the Carolina Panthers. You're going to get 2 guys that's going to go out there and give it their all no matter what, I think, because they both know whether Donald ends up somewhere else or Mayfield or whatever. These guys got something to prove. And it's two high draft picks there? Come on. How many teams have that kind of luxury and it could be a win-win. But how about the running backs? Christian McCaffrey, you want to make sure he's healthy, but you still got Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman, who are not scrubs by any imagination. Dustin?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Gene. That's a great point. We saw how Deontay Foreman ran last year. He was a very formidable back, and I think that's big to have a bruiser like that, and then even to have a young guy like Hubbard, where they can kind of mix it up and not have to rely on Christian McCaffrey as much. Because again, the workload is sometimes what gets to him as well with catching and running. I think they need to really learn how to kind of utilize him a little better and not use him as much. Obviously, it's hard to do that because of how good he is when he gets the ball. But you want to make sure he can be durable for that 17-game season. So I really like the addition of Deontay Foreman, who can get those short yards. It can be a bruiser. So that's the thing. They've really added some depth on this team. So if there are a couple of injuries, they can handle it better. Yeah. And again, I can't stress this enough. Obviously, Rudy said it perfect earlier in the show. The quarterback is the biggest thing that makes this thing go, obviously. Yeah. And I'll say it again. I will be completely shocked, like fall off my couch shocked that Baker Mayfield is not the starter. But one thing that really has me excited about Baker being a starter, I'm going to go ahead and say it, is that offensive line is completely revamped. And people don't know it not being close to the Panthers, but that was the worst unit on their team and probably one of the worst units in the league for the last 4 years. That's how bad it's been. So to have a draft a left tackle at 6, to add depth from other teams, to where your starters from 2 or 3 years ago are now your second and third stringers, it's just a huge difference. And I think that's going to set Baker Mayfield up for more success with a good offensive line and if CMC can stay healthy.
All right.
On your point, when it comes to CMC being healthy, there are athletes, top performing athletes that really find ways to differentiate the types of workouts that they have on an annual basis. You have guys like Hall of Famer Troy Polamalu who decided to get into yoga and a lot of stretching and a lot of different types of things to keep his body limber. Didn't work out on weights, for him, it was a Polynesian method that seemed to work out for him in such a way that allowed for him to make as dynamic plays as he could possibly make, some of the best, ranking up there with guys like Ed Reed as far as from the safety position. CMC could stay healthy if he invokes possibly some of that. As your body is chiseled, those muscles are stiff, they're solid, they're rock hard. And the way to smooth that out in transition is by not only, your typical average, stretching out and things of that nature, massages, Pilates, water workouts to help with the core as well as keep fluidity. So if CMC can stay healthy, I can almost guarantee that some of those methods would prove to be probably a career-saving move from what he's normally used to doing. So we're going to find out who CMC is this year. I'm not sure of a breakout year for him, but it'd be great to watch him run and to be able to have that O-line work in such a way that enables him to get those chunks of yards per carry and really gets his Carolina Panthers team with probably one of the stronger strength of schedules in the middle of the pack in regards to wins versus losses for the season. And I'm going to go back a little bit. We were talking about the Falcons. They have one of the hardest strength of schedules in the NFL this upcoming season. So when it comes to being piggybacked, I really think Atlanta not only falls to the bottom of the list, but Carolina is going to take leaps and bounds forward because we're going to find out a lot about who they are, what they're made of, and their mettle in 2022, moving towards 2023.
Yeah, I'll put a bow on it for this division. I think you said it there. There's a lot of teams that have a lot to prove. The Saints want to prove that it wasn't just Sean Payton that could keep everything running, that they can continue being one of the better teams in this division. The Falcons want to prove that they can move on and rebuild this with some younger guys and that they're heading in the right direction. And then obviously, like you said, the Panthers with Matt Rule in year 3. In year 3, you should be ready to start competing for the playoffs after your third year, kind of in a rebuild. So this is a huge year for the Panthers. I can't say it enough. Huge year for the Panthers, a huge year for Matt Rule. And you're exactly right, Rudy. If it's a schedule or whatever, maybe injuries, if somehow, regardless, if this goes sideways for another 5-win season, which I think would be the third 5-win season in a row for the Panthers, there's absolutely no way that Matt Rule will keep his job. So a lot on the line. We'll see what happens. But I will have to say that I see I'm not saying it's going to result in a playoff spot, but I do see a different energy and a different atmosphere around this team this year, where they finally seem like they've got a unit who is clicking together, believing in the coaching staff, believing in each other. I think Baker brought a spark, and I really like what I'm seeing from the energy. So let's hope they can translate that to wins on the field.
All right, guys, great job on the NFC South, and wow, great information. I think we are going to tackle the NFC East on our next Sports King show, which that just might be in Vegas.
I got a lot to say on that one too.
Well, yeah, that show might just take place in Vegas. As you know, guys, listeners out there, girls and guys, kids, whoever listening out there, Sports Kings, Mean Gene show, and the Picks are in. Mr. Picks, we will debut in Vegas next week, August 12th, 13th. We will be there. You can go to our Facebook page. Sports Kings Podcast is the name of that page, and you can see the entire schedule where we're going to be out there in Vegas doing our shows. We are so excited to be at the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas. They are it's a big thing that casinos are doing now in Vegas. They're bringing in sports shows, and I think, Rudy, we saw some of that when we were out there for the draft. Some of the other casinos brought in different people, and Dustin, over the years, we have done shows at different casinos, so that's starting to be a big thing, and bringing players in and bringing sports talk to those things just offers another variety of entertainment, which we are so excited to be part of. But real quick, guys, I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds to comment on these guys. Let's congratulate the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinees. There's 8 of them going in tomorrow. Hey, grab your handkerchiefs, your Kleenex, because there's going to be some tears. Oh, there always is. I don't. usually cry when I'm at the Hall of Fame, but man, when I get to watching those speeches and hear these guys talking about their grandmas and their mamas and all of this stuff, it's tough. But congratulations to Tony Baselli. We got Cliff Branch, Leroy Butler, Art McNally, Sam Mills, the late Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Dick Vermeil, and Bryant Young. They all are going to be getting their props tomorrow. What do you think about that, Rudy?
You know what? Well deserved. Even though there are no Steelers in there, it's very well deserved. And I must say that Coach Tony Dungy made it a point to talk about all the Steelers in the Hall of Fame. So they're not really missing a whole lot this year, but there are some guys who deserve to be in there already. And I mentioned them earlier in the podcast that Troy Polamalu, Heinz Ward is on there. There's a laundry list, but for the guys that are actually going in that are going to be receiving their jacket, a couple California guys, Dick Vermeil, just absolutely a hugger of men, a hugger of life, and just a true gentleman. From everything that I've seen, from coaching with the Eagles to the Kansas City Chiefs to one with Kurt Warner and The Greatest Show on Turf, just an outstanding guy with just great character. And that's what this game should be made of, not the off-field debacles that some of these guys find themselves in, but to remember who set those wheels in motion before you ever wore a football outfit, before you ever laced up the cleats, before you ever put a pigskin in your hand. These guys helped set the path to where you're at right now. So hats off to all of them. Cliff Branch, man, there's just so many things to say about Cliff Branch and the greatness that he is. And it didn't matter who was lined up against him. He was going to take him out and do everything he can to make sure he caught that ball. Just fantastic. And Sam Mills going in posthumously, just a great character guy, a great person, such a great family. There's a lot of things to really like about this class. And when I think of who could go in next year, there's still a laundry list of guys. Tony Baselli goes in as one of the best Jacksonville Jaguars to get in. Of course, Jimmy Smith's always out there, hoping he'll get in one day, and I hope he does. He leads a lot of different categories, so shout out to Jimmy Smith on that. But which I actually had a chance to meet him by complete accident at the link when I was there for the NFL draft. Great guy, love talking. He has kids with him and everything. But so I'm sure he's happy for his teammate to go in. Just a lot of things to love about this class, and looking forward to watching it tomorrow.
Yeah, I echo everything Rudy said. Congrats to everybody that's going in. I definitely want to spend my time real quick, talking about Sam Mills. I mean, you talk about well-deserved. Everybody, people may remember him from the Saints and everything he did there, but people really should take some time to see what he did for this Panthers organization. I know he only played a short time here, but he was one of the heart and soul guys of the organization. He had a interception to seal their first playoff win. And again, even after his playing career, he coached here, and then he went through his battle with cancer. The Panthers came up with Keep Pounding, which they still use today. They're actually having a Keep Pounding game this year in Sam Mills' honor. And before every game, they pound the Keep Pounding drum. Some person with inspiration comes and pounds the drum. So he has really put something into this organization. His son, Sam Mills III, is still on the coaching staff for the Panthers right now. So he really has, you talk about the Panthers only being an organization since 1995, so they're still relatively young. He put the heart and soul into this organization. And so their mantra, Keep Pounding, came from him. It came from, him battling cancer and him battling the right way. And so I just an honor for him to finally get in for his family so they can celebrate his accomplishments on and off the field. And I'm just so happy that his name was finally called because he deserves it so much.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you're right. 45 years old when we lost him. Man, Sam. So it's definitely going to be a tearjerker tomorrow. I talked with CBS senior sports writer Brian DiArdo. He had a chance to talk with Cliff Branch's sister. So we will be talking to Brian DiArdo next week. in Vegas. He will be a guest on the SportsKings Show. He's going to be in Pittsburgh covering the Steelers preseason. So great times coming. So, guys, I want to thank you for your Friday night and, doing these shows here. And the whole time, Dodger baseball is on, Dustin. You know how important that is to me, right?
I know. Well, the Braves have already got a win against the Mets, so I'm good to go.
So it's a 6-0 score. I'm just going to sit back and, in the words of the great Vince Scully, enjoy some Dodger baseball. But hey, great show, guys. Rudy, Dustin, see you guys next week in Las Vegas. Man, it's going to be great.
Looking forward to seeing y'all.
We're gonna do it right. So hey, listeners out there, enjoy your weekend. Please sit down and watch the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame tomorrow. It's just great. It's just a great event. Those speeches, listen to those guys, man. They are so honored, and to make that list of the elite, it's wonderful. So I will definitely be making that time. So hey, we're gonna close this out. We'll see you back here next week on the SportsKings Show. Mean Gene, Rudy Reyes, Dustin Pfeiffer. Have a great weekend, folks.